Good evening. It is Tuesday, December 13th, and I'd like to introduce Sharon Stein, who will introduce Damaris Lorta of A Safe Place.
Thank you, Vanessa, and thank you, Damaris, for coming tonight. Damaris Lorta has a master's degree in clinical psychology with counseling specialization and domestic violence professional certification. She has worked and advocated for victims of domestic violence for the past 19 years. For over 14 years, she has advocated for victims of domestic violence through programs at A Safe Place. She was director of the legal advocacy program for more than 7 years, and through this program, she and the team were able to connect victims and survivors of domestic violence with resources that will aid them in their efforts to maintain, to be free from abuse and safe from their abuser. She also has experience providing direct counseling work with adults, couples, children, and victims of abuse. She's done many trainings educating the public, police officers, and students about domestic violence, myths and truths of DV, orders of protection, and resources available for victims and survivors of abuse. She currently is the Chief of Development Officer at A Safe Place, where she continues to share survivors' stories and continues to advocate, bring awareness to the community, and raise much needed funding to support services for survivors and their children. She is passionate about empowering all victims of abuse and working with organizations and agencies to help keep victims and the community safe. And on a personal note, I'm excited for this presentation because we had a little connection with A Safe Place when it was just in a little house in Waukegan at one site. And I'm so interested in hearing how it's changed over the many years. So thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and welcome everybody that's here and everybody that will be watching this at a different time. Thank you for the opportunity to share who A Safe Place is and what we offer and how we can serve, how we're serving the community. So I'm going to share a presentation. It's okay for me to share it, Vanessa? Okay.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So I think you have to enable for me to share. I can't share.
Oh, wait. Oh, maybe. Oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry.
That's okay.
I want it. All right, there you go.
Perfect. All right, can you see my presentation?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so A Safe Place, and today I'm going to talk a little bit and reference how domestic violence impacts the community. Like Sharon said, this is one of my passions, right? Because domestic violence impacts all of us. It impacts those of us that are here tonight, those of us that are going to be watching, and it impacts our family members one way or another, directly or indirectly. So it's important for me to stress the importance of why the community needs to get involved, because it's not just impacting one person or one family, it impacts the community. And who are we? This is one of my favorite slides because, like Sharon said, right, we have grown so much over the last 43 years. So we are 43 years old. We are the sole provider of services exclusively addressing domestic violence and human trafficking in Lake County. And I want to be really clear about that statement. That statement does not mean that there's not other agencies that provide assistance to victims of domestic violence or human trafficking in Lake County. What that statement means is that this is the only thing that we do. All our clients that come into our facility or any of our programs are victims of domestic violence or human trafficking. We may assist them with other services, but everybody that we serve have that in common. There are other agencies that we partner with that are beneficial to our community as well, that provide services to survivors, but they also serve other clients. They may also serve the homeless, right? Or they may serve individuals that are victims of sexual assault and not domestic violence, right? So they may help, right? And we may share clients, but we're solely addressing domestic violence and human trafficking. And what we want to achieve, right, is to eliminate domestic violence in Northern Illinois and all over. I was just talking to one of our donors earlier this week, and they said, I would be okay if tomorrow I woke up and they called me and said, you have no job because domestic violence ended, right? I would be okay with that. But unfortunately, that's not what's going to be happening, at least not in my lifetime, I don't think, right? Because we have seen the numbers increase. We started 43 years ago, like Sharon said, in a little downtown house in Waukegan. And that house served about 7 or 8 individuals. We came about through a task force, right? And the police and the state attorneys looking at cases that were coming in and saying, we have to have somewhere to send victims of domestic violence. They have nowhere to go, and they're having to stay with the person who's abusing them. So Safe Place was born, and we started with a house downtown, and then we moved into our emergency shelter, which has enough room and beds to serve 33 individuals. And we had that emergency shelter for a very long time. And when people heard of a Safe Place, they related it to emergency shelter. Fast forward 43 years, now we are over 14 satellite offices throughout Lake County. And what that means is that we have offices throughout, whether we have a space that's designated for us, or we rent a piece of a location, or we are lent a space to provide counseling, support groups, advocacy, but we are in 14 satellite offices throughout Lake County. Because we are the sole provider in Lake County, it's very important for us to make sure that individuals that need our services have access to us wherever they're needed. And real quick, I'll give an example of our office in Lake Forest. We have an office at the Gordon Center. We actually have 2 offices at the Gordon Center where we provide counseling. And when we started, when we were looking into getting an office there was a lot of pushback because domestic violence doesn't happen in Lake Forest, right? It just doesn't happen. So there was a lot of pushback until, unfortunately, there was an incident where a woman was killed by her abuser at a Starbucks in Lake Forest. And then we said, okay, maybe we do need the services here. We opened Lake Forest. 2 weeks after we were open, we already had a waiting list of individuals that needed our services. So it happens everywhere, and we want to make sure that we, again, are accessible to individuals that need it where they need it. We understand that somebody from Highland Park or Lake Forest or Vernon Hills, they may not want to come to administration in Zion to receive services. That's a drive, right? And they may not feel comfortable. However, we also understand that individuals that are in those areas may not want to go to receive services in their hometown because they may run into somebody that knows them and want to keep this secret, right? So they may be coming to Zion. So our office locations are open to anybody wherever is convenient, is the safest for them to attend. So again, we have expanded, and I will talk about the services in just a little bit. Why should we bother, right? So the statistics show that 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men will be victims of domestic violence by an intimate partner within their lifetime. So there's 4 of us on the call right now. Unfortunately, statistics say that one of us will be a victim of domestic violence at some point, right? And if we're not, we will know somebody, right? So 1 in 4, that's not a lot. So we all know somebody, whether it's a relative, whether it's a coworker, a friend, that will be suffering, right, from domestic violence in their lifetime. So it's very important for us to know what resources are out there so we can provide the assistance that we need. I'm not going to read every single one. I can share this PowerPoint with you guys and you can share it.
That would be great.
But it's just alarming, right? When we see the statistics, I'll share the next one. The leading cause of injury to women, more than car accidents, muggings, and rapes combined, is domestic violence. But who talks about it, right? Unfortunately, domestic violence is still a taboo in our community. When we go out to resource fairs or to events and people know who we are, oh, I don't need this, right? I don't need services. Well, you may not, but you may know somebody that does, right? And you may not even know that that person needs it, right? So we're going to share a little bit about how you can get the information out to your communities, because again, we don't know who's going to need it at what time, right? Myths and realities. Domestic violence only happens because victims provoke the partner. Obviously, that is false. The abuser is always male. Again, that is false. We serve individuals who have caused abuse as well. And we have the only female group in Lake County of people who are abused that are female. Against male. So there is, that is a myth, right? It is still more prevalent for it to happen to women, right? But it does happen to male, and we do have male clients in our facilities. The presence of a gun in the home of an abuse relationship increases risk of homicide by 500%. There is a link, there is a correlation. And it's not just as easy as, somebody should leave the abusive relationship. If there is a firearm, the most dangerous time for a victim is when they leave the relationship because the abuser is losing control, right? So we want to make sure that if somebody is ready to leave, that they are safe leaving the environment. A lot of the clients that we serve are still with the person who's abusing them because it is not the right time for them to leave, right? So that is something that, again, we have to keep in mind. What do we provide at a safe place? So at a safe place, we provide a comprehensive continuum of care service. What does that mean? We want to make sure that we are serving everybody. So if you look at it or think about it as a circle, right? We want to make sure that we are providing services to the victims, right? The people that are suffering, right? That are experiencing this. But we also want to make sure that we prevent abuse from happening again. So we provide services for individuals that are causing the harm, right? That doesn't mean that we do couples therapy, because we will not, right? Because it is not safe for the victim. However, we do want to address the causes of the abuse with the person who's causing the abuse so that they don't reoffend, right? Whether it's with that same individual or a new partner. And then we want to make sure that the abuse doesn't happen again at all. So we provide education and prevention programs throughout Lake County to make sure that this doesn't happen. So this is where I throw my pitch all the time. We love to go into schools. Why do we do that? Because we want, again, to prevent abuse from happening. We want that cycle of abuse to break and not to even start with our youth. So we have to go into the youth to teach them what is a healthy relationship? What does that look like? And unfortunately, some of our youth are already in situations where they're in an abusive relationship. And what do they do with that? Where do they go, right? So we want to provide those services as early on as possible. So if any of you know of a school or a program for the youth where we're able to come in and present healthy relationships, red flags, right? What to look for. Please connect us so we can provide that service.
How many youth, how many teens? What percentage of your work is work with teens?
So we have, that's a good question, and I'm not going to give you the right number, but in one of our slides, it's going to talk about the prevention piece of it and how many we have served in the last 2 years. Obviously, with COVID, so pre-COVID, I can tell you that we were serving, I don't know, over 20,000 teens in a year, in a fiscal year. With COVID and the schools closing and us not being able to go out to the schools, that has decreased, right? But again, that's why I'm sharing this, because we need to get in there. We want, whether it's virtual, whether it's in person. We just received a grant to be in schools and have a special curriculum for abuse, right, and violence in general. And that grant is specifically for Waukegan, North Chicago, and Zion, which are considered high-risk populations, right?
Yeah.
So we are on there, but it's a special curriculum. So that's one program in itself. And then we have our outreach and education specialist, and she focuses on the other schools. And again, goals depending on what the school allows, right? Because we have to work with the schools. So some schools, again, are like, it's not happening here, right? So we're like, okay, but let's just teach red flags just in case it does come up. Or maybe now, what is abuse, but what does a healthy relationship look like? And go about it in that way.
How old are the kids that you see?
So in our programs, like for the education piece, we have been to as early as elementary schools. Again, we tailor the curriculum or the presentation based on their age, but the majority of them are high school and middle school.
Okay.
Now we serve all of the ages through in our other programs, you know, the counseling, the support groups, the case management. We serve all children of all ages, but with the prevention and education, the majority of them are high school and middle schoolers.
Mm-hmm.
And we usually go in through the health classes. That's usually where we're able to secure a spot, you know, that we go one day and we touch every period of a health class talking about domestic violence or healthy relationships. Yeah.
Okay.
Good questions. Continuum of care. So these are talking about our services, right? And when I started, I said, you know, the most common thing that people knew us about was our emergency shelter. So when you talk or said a safe place, that's what you heard, right? Well, they're an emergency shelter. Well, I'm here to tell you that we're a lot more than an emergency shelter. That is just a piece of what we do. The first part is our crisis and safety. So if you think about our services being sort of like a hospital setting, right? The crisis and safety is your first responders. We have a 24-hour helpline. We have a crisis response team. Our crisis response team work with law enforcement, and they are on call 24/7. So if there's a high profile case or very serious case where the police needed to get involved and somebody needs to speak to the victim right now to connect them with services, we have met clients at hospitals and at police departments, at their home after the police have secured it. So we are on site when needed, again, 24/7. And this is for both domestic violence or human trafficking. When they do a sting, you know, that you hear in the news that there's a sting that was done and, you know, so many victims were found, we are probably there in one of the rooms talking to the victims and trying to get them into services right away. We found that this was very important because when somebody calls the police and the police responds, what they get is either an envelope or a card or a sheet that says, Sharon, I'm going to take you as my guinea pig, because that you're the first person that I see. Sharon, tomorrow morning, call this number, go to this office for an order of protection, do this, right? And I give you this piece of paper and I leave. You could have lost it. There's a million things that are going through your mind, right? You were just abused. You may end up at the hospital, right? How much of that information are you going to keep? And if you lose that paper, now where do you call, right? So it was very important for us to make sure that, Sharon, that you had somebody, that you had a number to, that you had a face to, that you had a name to call, whether it's right now or tomorrow when you're feeling a little bit better. And you say, okay, Damaris, you called me last night, or I met you last night, and now I want to hear about services, right? So that's how we're getting clients into services immediately. Also part of our crisis is our emergency orders of protection. So we're at the courthouse assisting with orders of protection, filing them and going into court with them. And then our crisis counseling for both children and their mom or dad, the survivor. Once that is sort of settled down, then we move into the healing of our building, right? So I'm at the emergency shelter. This is a 90-day stay. I'm gonna have to start thinking of where I'm going next, right? Or I got an order of protection. That's a 3-week order of protection. What's gonna happen next? So our healing and building programs are our housing programs. We have transitional housing, which lasts up to 2 years. And those are either in Zion or scattered throughout Lake County. So if somebody lives in Gurnee and they don't want to move their children from Gurnee schools, right, or their family, then our transitional housing programs allow them to find housing in that area, and we help subsidize, right? Again, very important for us to hear what the victim survivor needs, right, to feel safe and to be safe. We have permanent housing program. We have 37 permanent housing, meaning they can live there forever. Those are through Section 8 housing program, and those are located in Zion. We also have family therapy, individual therapy, supportive services or housing. So helping our clients write their resume, helping them fill out an application for Social Security benefits, helping them fill out the application to go back to school, right? So any support that they need, this is done through our healing and building space. I'm going to skip intervention and I'm going to go into post-separation. A lot of the times we think, okay, I'm out of the relationship, I got an order of protection, I'm in our housing programs, so the abuse stops. But we know that the truth is that the abuse continues even after people are separated. And again, how I said earlier during my presentation, sometimes that is the most dangerous time because the abuser is losing the control. So this is when we need to be more of that support. So we have a family visitation center that is currently into the end of the month in Mundelein. It's going to be moving to Round Lake. Because we had to expand it, where we do supervised or custody exchanges. So again, it's important for the children to have a good relationship with both parents, but it's not always safe, right? So a parent come in through one door, the other parent comes in through the other door, there's staff that meets them in the middle. So there's never an interaction between the parents, and everybody is safe, and the child is able to safely interact with both parents. We have our plenary orders of protection. So those are orders that are up to 2-year orders of protection, again, that are done at the courthouse and that we have an office there to support with. And then we continue with the group counseling, individual therapy, and supportive services. I talked about prevention, I talked about the schools, but we're also at like presentations like this, and any program, community events that we are able to attend, we are there. Again, very important to us, not only to talk about the services that we provide and the need that we have with the funding, but also to talk about prevention, right? How to avoid being in this abuse and how to get out of it if you are. And then the intervention I spoke a little bit about already, which is our abuser treatment program. The majority of the individuals that are in those programs are court mandated, but we do have some that come voluntarily. I always get asked, well, does this work, right? And I have to say that if it didn't work, we wouldn't continue to do it. Can you all hear me? I'm getting a notice that my internet is not good. You guys
No,
are
no.
still good?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, perfect. So we do follow-ups with the abusers, you know, if they don't comply or finish the program, it is reported. So we like to think that and believe, right, based on if an abuser graduates from our program, we do checks, right, to see if they re-offended or if they come back, are they a previous client, right? So we try to make sure that our programs are up to date and most efficient as possible. So here we go in the last 2 years, right? COVID has really impacted our agency, and it has taken a toll in our clients. And why do I say this? When COVID hit, right, we were told to stay at home, to stay away from family, right, to isolate, right? And that is exactly what domestic violence feeds on, right? So our clients were not going to work where they have support or have some type of freedom, right? They were not seeing family members who probably, again, could have supported or known that something was wrong. So our numbers increased. Just to give you an example, our emergency shelter, I said, holds 33 individuals. We had to move everybody from our emergency shelter because that's communal living. We had to move everybody into hotels. July of 2020, in 1 week, we were serving over 110 individuals in those hotels, okay? So our numbers went from 33 to over 100 in 1 week. As of Thanksgiving, and I'm giving that number because I had to find food for all of our clients in our hotels because they don't have an oven to cook a turkey. We had over 66 individuals in our hotels. So we have not gone back to pre-COVID numbers, and we don't foresee us going back to pre-COVID numbers. When agencies shut down, our services continue to be open. We did not close not one day. I would say about 80% of our services continue to be face-to-face, and the ones that were virtually were because that was the safest for our client, right? Or that's what they chose to do, how they chose to do it. So we saw a great need, and Pat Davenport, who is our CEO, she saw that the need was great and that the community needed us, and she said, we're not turning people away. So we were getting, you know, clients and serving clients, and our staff, you know, rose to the occasion and did a fabulous job trying to triage, right, and get clients that really needed the assistance, and those that were a little bit safer, you know, maybe connecting them to counseling services or other agencies to make sure that we were serving as many people as possible. So these are just numbers. We talked about the youth. So 2019-2020 fiscal year, we served 64,000 youth. And again, that is less than half of what we were doing pre-COVID. Yeah, that part really impacted our outreach because obviously of what we were able to do out in the community. Any questions on this?
I don't think so.
Okay. How can you get involved? How can you serve, right? So obviously, I always say you are already involved. Being here, listening to me, right, getting informed, you are already involved. And I hope that you share anything from tonight with somebody else, right? Even if you say we had a presentation from a safe place, you should look them up, right? Because that is how you're spreading awareness. That is how you're helping us get the word out that we are here. And again, you may not realize that somebody needs that number or that website, right? We have our board. So if you're interested in joining a board, we have opportunities for that. We have committees. One of our biggest committee needs right now is events. So that's the next one, attend our events. We have 4 events throughout the year. We have a 5K in May. We have a wine, women, and shoes in July. We have a golf in September, in August, in August, and then we have a gala in October. So if you are a party planner and want to get involved, we're always looking for committee members or individuals just to come and attend our event and learn a little bit more about who we are and what we do. We have a 40-hour training. Our 40-hour training is the certification on domestic violence. And that training we do for all our staff, volunteers, and interns that are working directly with clients. So it gives you a really in-depth look at how to serve individuals, right? What are the myths? What are the barriers that are facing our clients? Right? And how do we maneuver that? What are the impacts on children? And maybe not even being abused directly, but witnessing the abuse, right? So those trainings are held 4 times a year, and they're typically held in our Gordon Center facility in Lake Forest. Although depending on the size of the group, that may move, but that's typically where we have them. In-kind donations, you guys are already doing this, collecting items for us. We need these items year-round. You know, all our clients that we serve have different needs. So you may have somebody that comes into an emergency shelter that has nothing besides the clothes that they're wearing. So we provide shampoo, conditioner, deodorant, body wash, body soap, or hand soap, brush to brush their hair, their linens, detergent. So anything that you touch from the moment that you get up to the moment that you go to sleep, those are all the items that we need throughout the year because we provide all of that for all of our clients if they need them. Donate, obviously, we will never say no to monetary donations. We need it. We will always, we always need it, right? But again, even though I'm the director of or the chief of development, I always say it starts with getting involved, listening, volunteering, right? Following us on social media, sharing the information. You're going to make the biggest impact in that way. We will never say no to a donation, but there's other ways to do it as well, right? Questions?
So I have a question. Although I'm the director of lifelong learning and I do education, I have been in this position a long time. Our synagogues merged, so a really long time at the other place. And sometimes people come to me in terrible, terrible divorces. When do I, and is it domestic violence if it's only verbal?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. That's a great question. So domestic violence is more than the physical, right? That's the first thing that we think about is the bruising, is the pushing, the shoving, the punching. However, domestic violence goes beyond that. Domestic violence is power and control. So somebody that has power and control over another individual, and that can look in many different ways. It could be emotional, it could be psychological, it could be financial, it could be spiritual, it could be sexual, and it could be the physical, right? So somebody that, let's let's take the finances, right? Has the financial control over everything, and I can't leave because I don't have any money, right? He has control over all the bank accounts. He's blocked them, so I can't leave. I have nowhere to go. That is abuse. Now, if you call the police, right, they're probably not going to arrest your husband because he cut you off the credit card. However, we will provide for you services because that is abuse. And depending on the service that they need. So when I speak to, temples, synagogues, churches, and other community members, even we do some presentations for hairdressers. We don't want to do anything that's gonna hurt the person, right? So if somebody's coming to you and they're still in this relationship, right? And you say, you know what, Linda, you should call a safe place, right? They may shut down because they don't see themselves as a victim, right? Or now and you're gonna tell somebody else. So I'm gonna deny it till I'm blue in the face, right? Some people may say, yes, I need help, but some people are not gonna come out and say, this is what I'm experiencing. And I know this because I've seen it at my church, and it's like, yeah, that person needs my services, but until they're ready, I can't, right? I can't do it. Or a friend, right?
Yeah.
What we have done is provided business cards, right? Or even our brochure that if you have an office or a safe location to put it, right? A bathroom, an office, that you put them there. So if you're in the bathroom, right, and you need services or you want to know more about it, I might pick it up because I know that I can hide it somewhere, right? If I need to, right? Or I'm going to memorize the number because I'm going to need it, but I can't take that card because I can't have my husband know that I'm looking for services, right? So just having the information, whether it's a brochure or a poster or a business card or whatever it may be, posted where people can see it, it is beneficial. Now, if you have that in your office and they know that you're aware of our services, I might be more open to say, hey, what do you know about a safe place? Or who can call there, right? So that opens that door, but I wouldn't necessarily give like a brochure or a pamphlet or a number to somebody without knowing that it was safe for them to take it back home.
I would imagine in our area, the stigma of, thinking that you have to go to a safe place. We also have a Jewish organization, Shalva. So it's hard, but I have referred women over the years.
Yeah. And Shalva and that we work together, right? It's a collaboration.
Yeah.
And they're wonderful. And we refer clients to them, they refer clients to us. And it takes a whole community. And that's really what I want. It's going to take all of us to end domestic violence. Incident that just happened in Buffalo Grove, right? I was
oh my gosh.
A whole family, right? A whole family.
In a very giant looking house, an affluent community. And you can't say not in my backyard there.
Correct. And I was talking to, we were talking in the office, and working on a press release and working on information about it. It's like our society, again, with domestic violence is like, I don't want to ask. I don't want to say. I'm going to offend somebody, right? And we were saying, I'd rather offend you and let you know that you can come and talk to me if you need to, right? Or if you need help, than wake up knowing that you're dead, right? So sometimes we have to push, right? And be like in your face, this happens. It happens in our backyard, literally, right? And we need to get involved.
I think, and Sharon or Linda, do you have any other questions?
I was wondering if there's a seasonality to this.
Oh.
So there's not. I tried it when I worked at the legal advocacy program. I try to keep track, like when was our busy months, right? Like what triggers this? So the only thing I can tell you based on my 7+ years there is that around the holidays, we do tend to see a decrease because we're trying to keep the family together, right? We want dad, we want mom to be involved. We want them to come over. We want to visit. And it's a time where we think everything's going to be okay, right? It's supposed to be a happy time. So during the holidays, we do tend to see it go down a little bit, but then once the new year comes and throughout the year, then there's no rhyme or reason. There's no rhyme or reason.
I would imagine that there's also a tie to the economic cycle. X number of people are getting laid off. There's more pressure in the household to sustain things on one income rather than two.
We saw that with COVID, right? But with COVID, there was just so many factors, right? People were not working. People were together 24/7. Kids were at home, right? So it was like a pressure cooker. Everything's in there, right? We're waiting to explode. But again, we see individuals that are not working, and we see individuals that are both mom and dad are working, right? And they make 6 figures each. And so it impacts all of us. I always say it's like COVID, right? If it gets you no matter where you live, what you look like, who your neighbor is, who your parents are. It impacts all of us, unfortunately.
Sure. Well, I think that spreading the word and getting this out to everyone, we will be putting the link to this video in our weekly email. And really, Damaris, we can't thank you enough for coming out. A small but powerful group.
This was great.
It
Absolutely.
was a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for being here. And if anybody has questions on how to get involved, I would, or a hotline. So I'll give you our hotline is 847.
Wait a minute, wait. Let's,
Yep.
can you stop sharing for a minute?
Yep.
And then I am going to put in the chat. Okay. Tell us, this is the hotline. Go ahead.
The hotline is 847
Mhm.
249 4450. And then my direct number is 847 249. I'm lying. 847 731
It's late.
7165 extension 1008.
So anyone who's watching this, will be able to call you or call the hotline. And I think that's, again, powerful and very needed. So.
Absolutely. If
Thank
anybody's
you.
interested, on how to get involved, how can they volunteer? If they're experts on the subject, you were talking about education, right? If you want
Right.
to come and talk about higher education, how to apply for college, how to finish your GED, how to coupon, any life skills training is so needed and welcome for our clients. So if anybody is interested in volunteering or finding more information, please reach out.
Will do. All right. A very good evening. Great to see everybody, and we'll be in touch.
All right.
Thank you.
thanks so
Stay
much.
well.
Thank you so much.
And
Thank
tell your
you.
children, thank you for, we didn't
Yes.
hear them at
They were
all.
lingering over here, but they didn't interrupt. So
Good
thank
job.
you.
Good job. All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.